Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this rather big week for Bitcoin Trend and Forecast. We've got 10 years of celebrations kicking off today. That said, welcome to the Hodlnots weekly warm-up, the start of your week, recapping some of the news stories and headlines making news and headlines over the last few days. So let's get into some of that, kicking off with Vicky.
With Bitcoin as usual. So Bitcoin eyed 74,000 and it remained relatively calm during the weekend trading session after a volatile few days prior, which we all saw. And the cryptocurrency is still fighting to press above the important short-term resistance level, which John will show you in a minute. And Bitcoin's price trades slightly below 74,000 at this time at the moment, gaining roughly 0.5% over the past 24 hours. So it's evident that buyers are trying to recover some ground following the market-wide pullback that took place last week. So the most recent price action comes as the broader cryptocurrency market stabilizes, with total capitalization hovering around 2.58 trillion, according to CoinGecko. Bitcoin's dominance remains at 57%. However, the momentum remains fragile as traders continue to watch macro headlines, with Trump saying that they are under no deadline to strike a deal with Iran, meaning uncertainty is likely to continue for the time being. So you'll have a look to see what Bitcoin does in a minute, and we'll see what happens from there.
Absolutely. But again, bigger scheme, Bitcoin is up from where it was down the bottom, and global adoption continues to grow, as is evident with some of these stories. Now, still sticking with the US and, well, Trump and the government there, we've been talking about the Clarity Act for a couple of months now. And interesting that Senator Loomis says China will write the crypto rules of the new financial era if the Clarity Act fails to pass. The United States will lose its leadership position in crypto to other countries, including China, if US lawmakers fail to pass the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, known as the Clarity Act, a crypto market structure bill, as you all know, according to this Wyoming Senator Cynthia Loomis. Now, she says passing a comprehensive crypto regulatory framework would ensure that other countries do not write the rules of the next financial era. She added in a separate post, America built the dollar-dominated financial system that has anchored global stability for a century. The Clarity Act ensures that we build the next one. The time to act is now, before Beijing decides it will. Now, in May, the Senate Banking Committee voted to advance the Clarity Act after the legislation had stalled for months. Reviving crypto industry hopes that the bill might be codified into law in this year, 2026. So we know that the US is kind of leading the charge regarding global regulatory frameworks and bills. A lot of eyes on that to kind of set the precedent. But failing that, other countries will step in. Other countries are gearing up, and you'll hear from one or two other countries as well regarding crypto adoption and frameworks and laws. So, a lot of pressure on the US to kind of lead the charge, but change of guard? Maybe. We'll see. This year's still got 6 more months, 7 more months left of it. Let's get back into further stories.
Yeah, maybe that will light a fire under them now that the C word's been used. So we'll have to look. But back in the US, so the GOP portfolios shift towards Bitcoin and other Trump favorites. And this is even as the Clarity Act is struggling to pass. So it appears that Bitcoin is no longer just a campaign talking point in Washington, D.C. It's become a very visible part of political investment portfolios in the circles close to President Donald Trump. So Republican lawmakers have shifted their portfolios to reflect assets and companies that are in the president's favor. GOP, which is the Republican Party, lawmakers have migrated their portfolios towards Trump favorites. These include Intel and Bitcoin, which underscores how closely political sentiment and market positioning has started to overlap. The report also says that investments in the iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF currently accounts for only about 4% of total Republican holdings, subject to the analysis. This figure is relatively small compared to the traditional stock positions, but it holds considerable political significance. Bitcoin has become a clear financial symbol of Trump's efforts to turn the United States into the crypto capital of the world. So interesting that they're personally adopting the crypto vernacular and crypto itself, but they're just having a hard time passing it through the government at the moment.
Absolutely. And again, lots of eyes on these political parties. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago that a lot of the voters are not voting for the political parties that are being funded largely by cryptos. I still don't see a lot of stability within the crypto side of things. But that aside, Bitcoin has been a bit of the next big global asset. We know it's in the top 10 of the largest market caps. Bitcoin is becoming a bit of a household name, right? Everybody wants a bit of Bitcoin. Well, interestingly enough, there's a new case that is unfolding in the US, and this is by an anonymous plaintiff that is seeking the legal title to $293 billion worth of dormant Bitcoin without holding any of the private keys to that. This is a new precedent coming into place, built on an old precedent. So, a pseudonymous individual or anonymous individual calling himself Noah Doe, along with two Wyoming LLCs, have filed suit in the New York Supreme Court seeking a court declaration that they are the legal owners of 39,069 dormant Bitcoin addresses holding roughly 3.8 million Bitcoin, with an estimated $293 billion at current prices. The case, which was filed initially on March 11th of this year and amended on the May the 1st, again of this year, is believed to be the first attempt in US history to claim title to Bitcoin under a lost and found property statute. The legal vehicle is New York Personal Property Law Article 7B, a statute designed for tangible lost objects. A wallet found on a sidewalk, say, or jewelry left in a cab. The law says a finder who reports lost property to police makes reasonable efforts to locate the owner and receives no response or responses within a set period can eventually take legal title to the item. So Noah Doe and the two Wyoming LLCs, their complaint argues that dormant Bitcoin addresses are lost property under that framework, and that Noah Doe's USB drive of all the addresses, all the data that has been delivered to the New York Police Department, the 17th precinct to be exact, satisfies the deposit requirement and that title to all 39,069 addresses. The statute has never been applied to cryptocurrency. Now, Article 7B was written for physical objects that a finder picks up and hands to authorities. The plaintiff never held private keys to any of these addresses and could not have transferred the coins to the police or to any owner who came forward. Interesting times, claiming, you have those lost addresses are yours, all 39,069 of them. We'll see what happens. We live in a bizarre world in new times, but that is a lot of Bitcoin that is apparently lost. More on that, I'm sure, in future weekly warm-ups as well.
That opens a lot of questions, actually, like how are they going to access those wallets if they don't have the keys? But anyway, we'll see what happens with that. And to another part of the world, South Korea, this time they've actually got it right. So they have cracked down on CatFi rug pull. So the first ever crypto fraud case under new investor protection laws. So South Korean authorities tracked suspects for months after CatFi case was initially dismissed, despite early blockchain sleuth reports and evidence. South Korean prosecutors have filed charges against a group of individuals linked to a Solana-based meme coin project called CatFi, following allegations that the token was used in a coordinated rug pull scheme after attracting investor funds. The Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office confirmed in its Wednesday statement that 5 individuals are now facing charges in connection with the case, including 2 main suspects who have been placed in custody and others who have been indicted without detention. So good for South Korea. They're getting their act together and they are finding lost crypto and stolen crypto and bringing people to justice.
It does set a precedent going forward as well, because we all have been part of rug pulls at some point, right? And if South Korea can kind of lead the charge on that front, other countries will take note, and maybe, just maybe, there'll be fewer rug pulls in the future. But again, ladies and gents, DYOR and trade what you see, right? Now, interestingly, these have been around a little while, and those are the Bitcoin ATMs. We do know that I think Australia has one of the highest count of those, and we do know that anytime Bitcoin or any sort of cryptocurrency is available in a public domain, people are always going to be able to try and scam people out of it, right? We talk about often about these scams, the wrench attacks, the phishing attacks, and everything else. But these involve Bitcoin ATM scams directly. And one such couple, a retired couple, have lost so far $76,000 of their life savings to such a scam, a Bitcoin ATM scam. And guess what? They have sued the company that provides those Bitcoin ATMs called Bitcoin Depot in the federal court in the US. Now, a class action that was filed in Idaho accuses the now bankrupt crypto ATM operator of profiting from fraud while leaving vulnerable consumers unprotected. Now, a retired Idaho couple has filed this federal action lawsuit against Bitcoin Depot Incorporated, alleging the company's ATM network served as a pipeline for scammers who drained their entire retirement savings of $76,000 over 5 consecutive days last year, August. Karen and Robert Lacey say fraudsters posing as Norton antivirus, customer service representatives, and posing as FBI agents convinced them their accounts were tied to child pornography and illegal gambling investigations. The scammers directed the couple to deposit cash at Bitcoin Depot ATMs between August 9th and August 13th of last year. To reinforce the deception, the fraudsters caused wireless networks labeled FBI to appear on the Lacey's phones, signals that still remain visible for months after the deposits. Now, the 43-page complaint filed on the 11th of May this year charges that the Bitcoin Depot, the company, processed each transaction without meaningful intervention, despite what it calls clear warning signs. First-time users making large cash deposits while on phone calls with unknown parties. The lawsuit further alleges the company charges fees of up to 50% per transaction and relies on on-screen warning stickers, a safeguard the plaintiffs call demonstrably ineffective. Federal Trade Commission data, FTC data commission, sorry, data information showed that Bitcoin ATM fraud losses increased nearly tenfold between 2020 and 2023, with a median victim loss, like an average victim loss of $10,000. By 2025, the FBI reported Americans have lost $333 million to Bitcoin ATM fraud, more than 10,000 victims in a single year. All right. So as convenient as Bitcoin ATMs, the whole premise and the whole idea is, there's a lot of potential for scams and loss. So ladies and gents, always make sure that you use a very reputable intermediary for your depositing of crypto or even in your local currency into wherever you're going to be using it. Perhaps, DYOR, use the exchanges that are reputable. Double check those addresses. Don't get anybody to help you. Even if you trust them, just be very cautious, ladies and gents. Always an opportunity to be taken advantage of. Right? That was just your friendly reminder for this week. Vicky, back to you.
Yeah. To a different kind of, we're going different way now. So Robert Kiyosaki, who is the Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, I think has taken a page out of our mantra, let's say, which is trade what you see. So he has warned against buying Bitcoin, gold, and silver on hype alone. So Robert Kiyosaki may be one of the most vocal advocates of Bitcoin, gold, and silver, but even he has warned on Saturday that it can be risky if you buy them on hype instead of doing your due diligence. Kiyosaki is the author of the best-selling book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Dad took to X to reiterate his long-held skepticism about the safety of US bonds as well. So don't drink financial planners' Kool-Aid when they tell you US bonds are safe. There is nothing safe from stupidity, the world-renowned author said. Kiyosaki noted that even gold, silver, and Bitcoin can cost you money if purchased on hype. So I think he's kind of listened to what we were saying for quite a while now, which is trade what you see, don't trade on hopium. So it's, good to see that we're right up there with Kiyosaki.
Absolutely. And that's it. I mean, the chart I'll show you guys in a few minutes on Bitcoin looks to be holding some good support, right? It's a good time to buy, right? Well, it could go down lower, right? It could go down to the next level of support and then the next level, right? We teach a lot of you to trade safely and trading the trend that's going up. Sure, you could get bottom dollar on gold, silver, Bitcoin, whatever it might be. But just because there's a lot of hype and optimism, we often don't see the charts reflect that. So please always do that research and understand your risk and your risk management around that. Now, speaking about it, and this is a little bit of build on one of the previous stories in terms of global adoption around cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. And it's not just South Korea that's being innovative in that space, but Vietnam. Now, Vietnam is proposing the allowance or allowing small and medium enterprises, you guys should know, SMEs, to use their digital assets as loan collateral. So, Vietnam's Ministry of Finance has proposed letting small and medium-sized enterprises use their digital assets, virtual assets, and intellectual property as collateral for bank loans. Now, why might you ask, would that be? Well, I'll tell you. The proposal is part of a draft revised law on support for SMEs, which is open for public consultation, according to a Friday report by the Vietnam News. Now, under the framework, businesses could secure loans using future formed assets, property rights, intangible assets, and digital virtual assets. Well, SMEs and household businesses account for more than 98% of all the enterprises in Vietnam. Yet, outstanding loans to the segment represent only around 20% of the total bank credit in the economy. So that means out of the 98% of all the businesses in Vietnam, them taking loans, they're only owing about 20% of all of that in the entire economy, per this report. Now, the ministry attributed the imbalance to a lack of eligible collateral, limited financial transparency, and the small capital base of most SMEs. Many startups and technology-driven or technologically driven companies hold valuable software, patents, or intellectual property, but have no land or physical assets to pledge, the report has now claimed. The new proposal marks a policy shift that could open up credit access for thousands of startups and tech companies currently locked out of the formal lending system. Exciting times ahead, ladies and gents. We have spoken about as well. You can see in the States, you can take out property loans or mortgages based on your virtual assets. Right? There are a couple of companies that are actually lending or allowing their clients to lend capital against their current Bitcoin and other crypto holdings. Good to see this happening for the small and medium enterprises as well. Not just in Vietnam, but maybe in other countries to follow soon as well.
And more, I guess, good news coming out of the US. Now, this is kind of a good news with a caveat of a big warning from us to you. So, this is for our US members because Coinbase becomes the first US exchange allowed to offer global crypto perps trading. So Coinbase was given the green light to offer crypto perpetual futures on Friday, setting the stage for US exchange to soon begin connecting its customers to the lucrative but highly risky offshore market. So Coinbase is now effectively permitted to offer its customers access to the global crypto perpetuals future market through Deribit, an offshore crypto options exchange Coinbase acquired for $2.9 billion last year. So, perpetual futures are a derivative contract with no expiration date, which allows traders to place highly leveraged bets on the future price of crypto assets borrowed using borrowed capital. So, this is a good news. It's a step in the right direction for the opening up of crypto in the US. But please be careful when you're trading futures, especially if you're leverage trading, because there's lots of different kind of little idiosyncrasies and you can get wrecked, which means not only are you going to lose the money that you put in, you could lose a lot more. So please be careful, but it actually is a step in the right direction for the US. So good news and caveat news.
All right. That's it. That's for the news section. We're going to get into some of the technical side and some of the calls coming up. But for now, what is the current fear and greed showing us, Vicky, in terms of, we've seen Bitcoin retracing for the last 2 weeks after hitting around 82,000. What kind of sentiment is there roughly in the market?
We are back into extreme fear, or a fear and you can expect that because as the market dropped last week, it went into extreme fear. It's recovered, and as you're just about to show, Bitcoin is kind of holding stable. So people are just fearful to see what's going on. But let's see what we're trading, what we're seeing at the moment.
Absolutely. So let's have a quick look here at Bitcoin on the day chart. We have spoken about it obviously over the last couple of Mondays, the last couple of weeks. So we had mentioned to you all on the call a week ago that unless Bitcoin broke up and stayed up above about 78,000, let's just hide that quick. We were talking about it back here. We would see it probably go sideways, if not down. And that's exactly what happened. It wasn't able to get past that 78,000 or close up above that 78,000. And as you can visually see here, Hodlnots, and those who understand certain indicators, you will well understand that with those candles below the pink line, obviously below the big fat red line and that kind of thing, but specifically it needed to break up above and it didn't. And that's exactly why we're in a bit of a downtrend the last couple of days. Sure, a lot of geopolitical and macroeconomic factors coming into play. We have seen a couple of large institutions selling off of their Bitcoin again. But if we're going to try and break that trend, we're going to need to start to see these day candles up above in that position. Now, a lot of people, and this is kind of what Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, was kind of implying, is that just because there might be some positive news that you see on a news website, or you have a hunch, currently, definitely trying to hold some good support in and around that region. And again, whether you have a deeper understanding of Ichimoku or not, or you have an understanding of where support and resistance might be, well, bottom line is, pun intended, that Bitcoin needs to hold this area here. Not just today, but for the next couple of days. Otherwise, we're going to start to see it drop down even lower. We're going to start to revisit 72, and worst case scenario, really maybe 70,000. If we start to see that breaking down, it's going to see a little bit more of a free fall. But that said, can we expect over the next couple of days? Well, provided that we can hold, or Bitcoin can hold here in this range for the next couple of days, and then start to see a little bit of a turnaround again, it's going to be a little tough in the overall market, especially for those who are long-term holders. And that's why we're seeing a lot of people are starting to trade with the hodl fire indicator. So they might still hold their long-term positions, but they're effectively also going to be trading, running coins that are running over a day or two or three or five. And just looking at the markets, let's have a quick. This is just for Binance. There are a bunch of coins that are doing superbly well. So scalpers are having an epic day, perhaps, but they are finding that they're taking little bites, nom nom nom. But that said, hodl fire traders as well are following coins, have been trading up or trending up, like Portal. Portal's done more than 100% over the last 2, 3 days, and it is in a strong upwards trend. Well, we trade the trend. We trade those coins that are trending upwards. So do expect a little bit of turmoil as Bitcoin tries to hold on to the support area here. Scalpers having a whale of a time. Hodl fire traders are also trading those coins that are trending up. But to find out more about when those various calls are, whether or not you're in the Hodlnot space or you're outside, you're within Bitcoin Trainer Forecast, Speaking of, there are lots of calls happening around that for the 10-year celebration. Vic is going to tell us a whole bunch more about all the different calls that are happening within the Hodlnots space and a little bit more.
Yeah, we have a gigantic 2 weeks coming up actually, because if you haven't heard, it's Bitcoin Trend and Forecast 10-year anniversary, and we're having calls for the next 10 days, or a lot of extra calls, not just Hodlnots, every service provider. So every product is having extra calls, and that will be on the Bitcoin Trend and Forecast website. So if you haven't heard or if you haven't looked, have a look there and sign up for them because they're going to be super fun and educational. But in the Hodlnots realm, like I said, it actually kicks off, the Bitcoin Trend and Forecast 10-year anniversary kicks off today in about an hour and a half at 11 a.m. UTC with our welcome. So we're all going to jump on, tell you a little bit about what's going to happen over the next 10 days and what you can expect. And we're going to kick that off. And then the fun starts because there are tons of calls. So that will be followed by the first self-paced course call. So if you are doing the self-paced course, there is a call today at 12 p.m. UTC, and that is for those of you who are currently on chapters 1 to 3. And then in Hodlnots anyway, the next call, sorry, is also a self-paced course call, and that's at 5 a.m. tomorrow. That's Tuesday, and that's for any chapter or any module. You can jump on and ask your questions that you have since you've been doing the course. And then we also have our normal lodge call, which Wendy does every week, and that is also the second at 7 a.m. UTC. So jump on there. And then if you have the Hodl Fire indicator, and if you haven't, don't forget there is a free coupon for 7 days that you can try it out. So if you have the Hodl Fire indicator, there is a free call. So it is for everyone that has the indicator. You don't necessarily had to do the Hodl Fire course, but obviously there are Hodl Fire graduates on that call as well. But that's at 12 p.m. UTC on Tuesday. So jump on that call if you have the Hodl Fire, learn a few things about the Hodl Fire, and maybe find some coins that are running. So we'll have to look at the market to see if there's some coin setups that we can have a look at. And then right after that, that is the first of at least the Hodlnots 10-day celebration calls. So that'll be at 1 p.m. UTC, and that is TradingView tips and tricks. And John will be hosting that one, and he assures us, and I bet he has some goodies that you haven't seen some of these tips before. So we're really looking forward to that one. It's a little bit of fun and a lot of education. So obviously those who have seen John train fantastically well before, he's not going to disappoint. So that's going to be at 1 p.m. UTC on Tuesday, to jump on there. And then the next one will be on Wednesday, and this is at 6:30 a.m. UTC. And Wendy will also be celebrating the Bitcoin Trend and Forecast 10-year anniversary. And she's going to present 10 tips that can help you trade, or 10 tips that might help your trading. And this is about the wider crypto market, really. So things that you might have heard but not necessarily understand, or things that in the wider market might help you trade a little bit better. So that is that presentation. That's at 6 a.m. UTC as part of the 10-year anniversary. And then for those in the lodge, also on Wednesday at 11 a.m. UTC, we're going to have our first of 2 espresso chats this week. And again, espresso chats, if you're not sure what they are, they're just little chats. Bring your little drink, and we really chat about anything. There's no set topic, but they've been fantastic. So there's been a core group of people jumping on. We've been talking about the market. We've been answering questions, we've been asking questions, we've been just kind of talking about what we're all doing in this market. So it's been really good. And that's at 11 a.m. UTC on Wednesday. And that will be followed by, now this is for the Hodl Fire graduates, so those who have graduated from the Hodl Fire course. We don't have a regularly scheduled call this week, but we are putting an extra one on. So if you have graduated from the course, we're going to have a call for you at 12 p.m. UTC this week. And it isn't a webinar, it's actually like a chat like this. So those are super fun. We have a really good time with those calls, and we find lots of coins that are going to run. And we just talk about what went right, what went wrong. So that's on Wednesday. And then the following one will be also on Wednesday at 9 p.m. UTC, which is our first of our Hodl dot calls. So this is for the large participants who are focusing on scalping, doing the 3M challenge. So that will be again at 9 p.m. UTC. And then that will be followed by another Hodl call on Thursday, which is the 4th of June at 7 a.m. UTC. And Marcel will be doing that one again. He did it last week. He's doing it this week. So if you missed last week's, jump on because Marcel is a wealth of knowledge. And then not a Hodlnots call, but there is a BTAF token AMA. So if you're wondering what all is that's been put in the chat, what is the Vault 27? Jump on that and those questions will be answered for you there. And that is at 8 a.m. UTC on Thursday. And then we're having another espresso chat at 11 a.m. on Thursday. And again, same format, just a little chat, 11 a.m. And that will be followed like we normally end the week with the second of our self-paced course calls for chapters 4 onwards. So we do split them up because of the material. And then this week, though, we are ending our call on Friday, ending our week on Friday at 12 p.m. UTC again, which will be Hodl Fire versus Scalping. So this is part of the 10-year anniversary calls. So it's basically what is scalping, what is hollow firing, what's the difference, what are the similarities, and what should you do? What's better for you? And we're going to have a bit of a fun interactive session there. So we'll be training a little bit on both kind of styles, and then we're going to be putting the audience in the hot seat. So there is a ton of calls, and that doesn't include all the rest of the calls that are happening around Bitcoin trending forecast. So this is a giant week, and it will be followed by another giant week next week. So busy, 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 and fun.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gents, like Vicky said, head on over to your bitcointaf.com account, have a look at the calendar, and you'll see each of the day of this week and next week. You'll see the various events. There are limited seats. All right. So it is first come, first served. And I've got a feeling that some of them are already booked out. So click on the events and sign up for that using your Zoom account to register for it. And we'll catch you guys perhaps later, like Vicky said, an hour and a half from now on that big welcome call. And then perhaps you'll catch me leading that TradingView tips and tricks session tomorrow and all the other great sessions that we got planned. So plenty of opportunities to learn, not just the regular ones within the Hodlnots ecosystem, but the greater Bitcoin TAF ecosystem, as well as we celebrate 10 years of Bitcoin trend and forecast. Okay, that said, Vicky, considering there's so much happening this week in terms of calls and learning and opportunities, what is that weekly thought that we get to ruminate on?
Yes, and the weekly thought is in honor of the 10-year anniversary of Bitcoin Trend Forecast, and actually 6 years, and that's the little thing there. It's 10 years of Bitcoin Trend Forecast, it's 6 years of Hodlnots, and just want to ponder this. We have been together as a team for longer than most altcoins survive, and that is real commitment.
Pretty scary. That's it. Trade what you see. Stick with us. We'll catch you guys during the week. If not, again, next week, Monday. Thanks for joining. Until then, ciao, ciao.